Azura, I don't know how to believe in the dragons. I don't know where to start. I don't know where to place my faith. I don't know where the dragons fit in my belief system. Can you help me? Well, I'm very, very grateful that you clicked on today's video, because no matter who you are or how you identify, be it atheist or polytheist or monotheist, you will be able to find how working with dragons can fit with your belief systems in today's episode. So if you're new here, assalamu alaikum, merry meet, and welcome back to your daily dose of DragonFaether. My name is Azura DragonFaether, the Draconic Priestess, and today I will be your host for learning how to believe in the dragons. And if you're not quite sure what dragons really are, and you don't really know what a dragon spirit guide is or how to connect with them and work with them, etc., you're definitely going to want to check out yesterday's episode, because I give you guys my crash course in how to connect with dragons, but I also spill the beans on my best #1 secret for connecting with the dragons. So you're definitely not going to want to miss yesterday's episode. Click it in the cards or down below so you can catch up if you did miss it. But now we want to take it a step further in today's episode, and believing in the dragons always starts first and foremost with your heart. Okay, I know this is kind of cheesy, but here's the thing. Do you love the dragons? Do you admire the dragons? Do you feel called to them? Do you just find yourself in awe and wonder when you're watching dragon movies, or when you play like games that have dragons in them? Or even when you were a little kid, like, did the imagery of dragons just, completely marvel you? These are the things you need to ask yourself, because those who don't believe in dragons will never see them and will never experience them. And it doesn't matter if you don't believe in dragons as actual spirits that you can interact with. You don't have to believe in dragons that way in order to work with them and experience dragon magic. It's so objective and so subjective, excuse me, that's the word I'm looking for. It's so subjective in the sense that each person's interaction with the dragons is going to be entirely different, which is why we really first and foremost the only real thing that matters when it comes to believing in dragons is, are they already in your heart? Via loving them, via wondering about them, via thinking that they're just cool, okay? Some people just think dragons are cool. Hi, I'm one of those people, This is something that we want to focus on in today's video. And how do dragons inspire you? How do you love them? How do they move you? How do they, make you want to be a better person? These are things that you need to have in order to believe in dragons. Because if you don't give a crap, if they're just fantasy creatures to you, you probably won't really connect with the dragons in the way that you could if you genuinely loved the dragons, right? So that is truly the #1 step, okay? And it doesn't matter if you're an atheist or a polytheist or a monotheist. You have to have love for the dragons to believe in them. That is truly the critical key here, okay? But let's jump into how to believe in the dragons, no matter how you identify or how you believe or where your faith lies, okay? So we're gonna do step 1, or part 1 will be all about atheists, okay? Shout out to my atheists, okay? You guys don't really believe in gods, all right? You just actually don't believe in gods or a higher power, which is totally valid, okay? And here's the thing. In an atheistic practice with dragons, the most common way for these for people to interact with dragons in an atheistic fashion is by believing in them as symbols or as archetypes of the human experience. And some people will even believe them to be the personification of the forces of nature or the forces within the universe, right? Because the earth isn't the only nature, right? We have outer space and the planets and the other planets too. That's part of nature as well, okay? So the most common way for atheists to work with dragons is symbolically. And this means that you can focus on the symbolism of how the dragon represents your own life. In my personal practice, when I was working with the dragons, I use them to categorize different parts of the world to help me better understand the way that I connected to nature. So I would have a dragon personify fire, and a dragon personify water and air and earth and spirit and so on, right? And this was really largely influenced by the dragon rulers in Yu-Gi-Oh! Shout out to Yu-Gi-Oh! Kind of embarrassing. But it really helped me kind of understand my experience a little better. And also when I was, you know, just experiencing life and just questioning certain beliefs and things like that, I also really enjoyed using the dragons to personify things that I felt or experiences that I had. I would draw them as dragons to try and better process my emotions. And this had nothing to do with anything supernatural, and it had nothing to do with like summoning things, and it had nothing to do with like communication or divination. And it was all about, you know, self-reflection, and it was all about self-improvement and all about self-regulation. And even to this day, I will still do this exercise where I will, if I'm really struggling, I will draw like sometimes my trauma as a dragon, and I will burn that photo of that dragon as a way to symbolically burn my trauma away. And this is a very symbolic type of practice, right? Some people don't even believe the dragons are like symbolic that way. Some people genuinely just connect to the imagery of the dragons, right? So the dragons will simply be a personification of insert, honestly, anything, right? One of my favorite takes was from a hatchling in the Hatchling clan who really liked working with the planetary aspects, right? But they worked with them as dragons, not actually believing that the planets have dragon spirits, just that the planets themselves personified as dragons would look this way or would behave this way or would represent this, right? And ultimately, as an atheist, many people choose to work with dragons as correspondences. So what kind of dragon would correspond with a protection spell? Well, maybe a black dragon, right? Or what kind of dragon would correspond with a love spell? Well, maybe a pink dragon, right? Or a red dragon, right? So it just depends on who you are and what you believe and how you interact with symbols or with personifications or forces. Some people don't even like really acknowledge the forces of nature because they also believe that they are of nature. And this is just one dance of the dragons, if you will. But that is essentially how you can work with the dragons as an atheist. So that brings us into part 2, which is how do you work with the dragons but as a polytheist? Okay, well, let's jump into it. So many people will first and foremost reference all of the dragon deities that you can see throughout history, of course. And what I mean by that is deities throughout history that are personified as dragons. So the most popular one is, of course, my matron goddess Tiamat. Shout out to you, girl. We also have Apep, or Apophis from Egypt mythology. You have Leviathan, you have, who else off the top of my head? Jormungandr from Norse mythology. There's so many different ones, right? And they all kind of represent something different, but many of the dragon deities throughout history more or less represent the kind of same sort of chaos, creation type of energy. Many are associated with water, many are associated with like the earth and the cosmos, or the seas and the cosmos. And that tends to be pretty typical when you look back into the history of the dragon deities, right? But there is really no dragon pantheon. The closest that we get is in like Asian mythology. I believe it's China. We have all of these different types of dragons that are personified as elemental forces. For example, the Dailong are the earth dragons. So that is canonically actual elemental dragons within historical mythology. But when it comes to working with dragons in an individual practice, many people will choose to trying to encounter their own dragon guardians that represent the elements. For example, as a polytheist, some people may choose to interact with like gods of the elements in dragon form. That is one very common example. Some people might choose to take on a dragon god and a dragon goddess as like a matron and patron deity. Probably the most common version of this is going to be with Tiamat and Apsu from Sumerian or Babylonian mythology. And so it really just depends, right? Like it depends on what you're called to and how you work. And there are many polytheistic dragon witches who work with many different dragon deities and who call upon different ones in their craft. There's some who also believe that there are the forces of nature personified as dragons that maybe weren't necessarily in the history of mythology, but we, as polytheists, and in my practice, when I was polytheistic and called upon dragons in my craft, I believed these dragons were gods and essentially like rulers of whatever they represented, right? So for example, Tiamat, she is considered like a chaos, creation, like a void type of dragon, right? So I pretty much worked with her for chaos, right? Like that chaotic energy, okay? And I really wasn't devoted to Tiamat until much later in my life, but I'm just trying to give like an example of how you would work with Tiamat as a polytheist. And many of, we would usually create separate altars to honor them, and this type of practice might seem a little more ritualistic, and actually I would definitely encourage it. If you are polytheistic and you're working with dragons, I would definitely consider doing some sort of daily devotional with them. This is something that really helped me. In my practice, I had like a daily devotional I did with the elemental dragon guardians when I was a wee little kid. I was so small. But it really helped me have a routine, right? So I would sit at my altar and I would meditate and I would just like honor and talk to each one of the elemental dragon guardians and really just tune in with their energy and really try to, you know, call upon them whenever I needed them. There are definitely, you know, dragon gods and goddesses, but there's also like the ones that we meet, like the dragon guardians that we meet. And some people, or some like polytheistic dragon witches will work really hard to connect with certain dragons. And when they meet certain dragons, they will actually identify these dragons as their like gods and goddesses instead, which is actually more common than you would think. So it really just depends on how you want to believe in them, right? Like when I was polytheist and I believed in the dragons as different gods, I really believed that different dragons were like the gods of different elemental forces. There was one for earth, there was one for fire, there was one for air, but there was also one that oversaw every single, you know, culture. And then there was a dragon guardian over every part of the land. And I thought that all of these dragons work together. I'm not like polytheistic anymore, but this is still a valid practice. Like you're still able to tap into this if it resonates with you. And for many people it does. And it really helped my brain to kind of like categorize different archetypes when I was really young and just trying to find out where my beliefs were in terms of, you know, faith after leaving the Mormon church, right? But ultimately I ended up back into a monotheistic faith of Islam. So now as a Muslim witch, I work with dragons completely differently. I don't like, which is part 3, okay? We're moving into the monotheistic working with dragons. So for those of you guys who are monotheistic or who believe in one God, the best way to work with dragons is seeing them as agents of God. Or in my practice, I see them as servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just like me, right? So they're not like gods, they're not divinely powerful. They have flaws and they have, you know, emotions and experiences of their own. They have their own lives too, in my perspective. I genuinely believe that they're creations of God. And alhamdulillah, like in his like infinite mercy, infinite wisdom, he's able to create so many different like things for us to perceive and for us to just observe. It's a miracle. It's magical, you know, when you have that kind of an eye. But when you work with dragons through a monotheistic lens, we don't really worship them, right? We don't necessarily even have to create altars to them, but we work with them to either help us worship God, or we work with them to help however we need, right? You know, for me in a monotheistic practice, I work with my dragons to help me regulate my nervous system, right? For me, it's a practice of I focus on the certain type of dragon imagery, or for example, my matron goddess Tiamat, I call her a goddess in my practice, but I don't like glorify her as like an actual god. She really just represents the divine mother to me in my practice now, and the divine feminine, and you know, the source of creation, right? So I believe that God is the creator, and I believe that Tiamat is creation, if that makes sense, or creative energy, right? This is just my personal perspective as a monotheistic like witch, but I digress. Essentially, it's like honoring all of God's creations. And it's about looking for God's wisdom in the dragons, right? Like nothing with the dragons is unseen. And I think people forget this. There's nothing too mysterious about the dragons. To be honest with you, like all you gotta do is like look, like learn about them, right? Like all you gotta do is know where to look and you will find amazing secrets about the dragons, which is something that I encourage everybody to do. Everybody should research dragons in history and mythology, and you're gonna see it all over the world, and it's gonna blow your mind at how similar dragon myths have been throughout ancient cultures globally who never interacted or never could have met each other. And this is why I believe dragons are real, okay? Because why else do we have myths everywhere with cultures that could have never met if they aren't real, right? But I'm getting sidetracked, my friends. Anyway, when we work with dragons as, you know, from the perspective of monotheism, some people might genuinely believe that the one true God is a dragon. So there is that. You can totally have this type of faith, and this isn't uncommon, okay? Some people believe that God is actually goddess as Tiamat, and that is very actually common among many different dragon witches who didn't really resonate any other way than those kinds of beliefs. But for some people who might just believe like God is source or the creator or the one, if that makes sense, we work with dragons as partners, as teammates, right? This is why we call them a spirit team, is because they help us work along our path and improve along our path, and we give them, you know, kind of the same thing, but a little bit different, right? You know, because some people might say, oh, like a human can't teach a dragon. I beg to differ. Humans teach dragons all the time. And that's one of the reasons why humans love dragons so much and why dragons love humans so much, because there is this mutually beneficial relationship to it, and there always has been throughout history. Dragons have always served as some sort of personification of either terror or absolute power, and it's been this way for the dawn of human history. It's so magical, and it's something that like permeates all cultures, which is why I tell people you can be anybody and work with dragons. You can be a Christian and work with dragons. You can be an atheist and work with dragons. You can be a Wiccan and work with dragons. It really doesn't matter. If you believe in many gods, that's amazing. Maybe some of them are dragons. If you don't believe in any gods at all, that's amazing. Maybe you can start seeing dragons in the earth around you, in the trees, in the clouds, in the water. And if you're a monotheist, that's amazing. Guess what? Dragons are an amazing creation from God, just like everything else that we can learn so much from. And the best part is when all of us come together, whether we're an atheist witch or whether we're a Christian, whether we're, you know, a Wiccan, and we all believe in dragons and we all share our experiences. This is the magic of dragons. And this is truly my favorite part about working with dragons, is simply by how different and how unique the dragons express themselves depending on how you, the viewer, believes in them. Yes, depending on how you believe in your dragons will completely change the way they express themselves. And the way that I have believed in my dragons throughout my lifetime has changed as many times as I have, but they've never left me. And I've always been a girl who just follows her dragons. The only difference is that over time and the way that my faith changed and the way that I believed in them has changed, so has their expression changed for me in my life. Never have they ever left me. They've always been with me, but they are shapeshifters nonetheless, and they are always changing with me, and I am always changing with them. So I hope that you enjoyed today's video. Shout out to all my atheists, all my polytheists, and all my monotheists. You guys are beautiful human beings, and I want everybody to know that we do not tolerate hate in this comment section, okay? Like, this is a safe, sacred space for us to learn from each other and connect with each other, and we encourage people from all different religions, all different faiths, and all different spiritual practices, or lack thereof, to come here, gather, and learn something new. So we have nothing but love for you guys, all right? So let me know if you're an atheist, if you're a polytheist, or if you're a monotheist in the comments down below, and how you believe in the dragons. What has helped you keep your belief in the dragons, and how has it always just maybe been there? But anyway, you're definitely gonna want to stay tuned because tomorrow I have a super special surprise for you. I can't tell you what it is, okay? You're just gonna have to wait, so stay tuned. But I'm super excited to share it with you. This pretty much concludes week 1, or the Dragon Week 1 here on the channel. I hope you guys enjoyed having a week of dragon episodes. It's been really amazing. I have had so much fun, but this is only the beginning, and we're not stopping dragon videos, okay? They'll be happening throughout the, throughout the month, but 1 week every month we're gonna have a dragon week when it's just back to back to back dragon episodes. So if you're new here, you're definitely gonna wanna hit that subscribe button if you love dragons as much as us, and don't forget to join the Hatchling Clan Discord server if you'd like to learn more about dragons. If you'd like, if you need any help in working with dragons, navigating that, it's a free community for you to enjoy, and all of the hatchlings and I are absolute fangirls for dragons, so you're definitely going to want to join us. We would love to chat with you and learn about all of your dragon awesomeness and what your beliefs are about them. So thank you guys so much for tuning in today. It means the world to me. I couldn't even say thank you enough for all the support you guys have been giving me for the daily dose of DragonFaether. It's been so long since I've posted on this channel, but now we're back and we're doing daily dose after daily dose, and you guys are loving it. And so thank you guys so much for tuning in and continuing to watch after all these years. Like, I wouldn't have this beautiful 100K plaque without all of you amazing humans. So thank you guys so much. I cannot wait to share more with you guys of this magical dragon journey that we are on together. But I will catch you guys tomorrow. And until next time, little hatchlings. Ding. Good office, blessed be. Amen.
We'll see you back next time for your